Hello, everyone. I'm Ruth Mortimer, Global President here at Advertising Week. Now, our research shows that the topic that most marketers are focused on in 2023 is connected TV and how it can really deliver on its promise. Now, while TV forms a major part of many marketing budgets, the ability to marry it with data and make it work harder is something that marketers are really keen to get their teeth into. So let me welcome someone who's going to tell you how. Eric Hatzenbuhler. He is the Senior Digital Marketing Manager at MNTN, and he is joining us. So he is going to tell us how to make connected TV work harder for you, not just on your TV screens, but through your whole marketing operations. Now, Eric, welcome. Connected TV is a very global business, and so are we. I hear you're joining us from balmy Minneapolis.
Yes, balmy indeed. It is about 2 to 3 degrees below Celsius right now for those in the international world. Yeah, balmy is one word to describe it. But it's nice for us this time of year, so we'll take it.
Perfect. Well, if you're also in balmy temperatures in the audience, please keep your fingers warm by throughout this session. Please use the chat function to ask Eric any questions, and we will try to get to those at the end. Eric, I'm going to hand over to you.
Sounds great. Well, thank you, Ruth. Yes, hello, everybody. My name is Eric Hatzenbuhler. As Ruth mentioned, Senior Digital Marketing Manager here at Mountain. My background and a little bit of what I do here is primarily, my background prior to Mountain is in the agency world, managing paid media programs for many different clients across various industries. And I've taken that expertise to Mountain. So I really oversee our paid media efforts here. And that is inclusive of paid search, paid social, and of course, connected TV that we run through our own Mountain platform. So very excited to talk to you today about CTV, how it can impact your other channels. As a digital marketer and expert in that space myself, something I get really fired up about. So we can dive right in. And of course, today's title, let me see your halo, how connected TV generates demand while boosting paid search and social results. Very interesting topic and very excited to talk with you today. The primary key takeaway for today is that, connected TV is a really powerful performance and demand generation tool that will help boost your paid search and social results, while advertisers really kind of navigate this, economic storm that we're in. There's a lot of uncertainty. We'll talk through how CTV can be really a main pillar in your marketing strategy and your marketing mix and make you feel a little bit more comfortable, potentially expanding into a new channel or continuing to invest in an existing channel at this time in kind of the economic state. So for today's agenda, we'll walk through first how the TV landscape is continuing to shift. Obviously, a lot of shifts in viewership between linear and streaming. We'll talk about that. And of course, a lot of streaming services continue to add ad-supported tiers to their mix. So we'll also talk through some of that as well. We'll talk through why connected TV is a really powerful performance and demand generation tool in itself, how it can boost the results in the paid search and paid social world, and then ultimately some key tips for getting started with CTV campaigns. So the TV viewing audience really is shifting. In July, Nielsen reported that streaming made up the largest share of TV viewing, exceeding linear for the first time, and that gap will continue to grow between the two as more and more users cut the cord and shift over to primarily streaming services as their way of consuming content on TV. However, CTV only accounts for 18% of video ad dollars. So as you think about the difference there, CTV really provides a pretty significant opportunity in terms of, the ability to reach your target audience in a way that you're familiar with from paid search and paid social, instead of the traditional way of, buying content and hoping that your target consumer is consuming that content at the right time. This is all audience-based targeting. You can feel confident that you're reaching your desired audience. And 70% of viewers these days are not accessible by linear TV. So sticking with just linear TV in your strategy, you're missing out on a huge segment of the market that can really drive some positive business performance for your organization. And CTV is really becoming more robust. As we've talked about, the reach and expansive nature of CTV and streaming will continue to grow. People continue to cut the cord. And of course, more recently in 2022, Netflix, for example, added an ad-supported tier that has performed very well for them. As you think about other services like Disney, Hulu, ESPN, many of them already have existing ad-supported tiers or in the process of implementing ad-supported tiers. And in the uncertain economic times that we live in, this also presents an opportunity for consumers to access this content at maybe a little bit of a lower cost in exchange for being served ads. And as advertisers, that really opens up a lot of available inventory and placements for us. So when we think about peak performance from TV, CTV isn't really relegated to just a brand awareness tool. Of course, it offers that being on the TV screen and the nature of video and the format that it appears in. But CTV can really be the third pillar of performance marketing for you, driving direct conversions, direct performance, targeting your specific KPIs, whether that be conversions or cost per acquisition, conversion value. All of those are available within CTV via the Mountain platform, and we'll talk through some of those today. So generating new demand, one thing to kind of lay the land of what CTV looks like, your ads are unskippable and your message is delivered in full, which can be very valuable if you think about some other video placements you're potentially using. They may be shorter form, they're easily skippable. You can ensure in this case that not only are you serving on the largest TV in the house during premium content, but that your ad is being viewed in full and is unskippable in that format. So just in general, sort of the placement that exists within CTV can make a major impact on your target users and audience. And of course, on top of all of that, being that it is sort of in the nature of digital, all of this is measurable. We have robust measuring capabilities. You can ensure that you're reaching the right audience. You can view performance by network, of course, by creative, campaign, anything you want to look at in that sense is all available to you from a measurement standpoint within the Mountain platform. So when we talk about reaching key audiences, this is where CTV's impact really comes into play. So on average, the Mountain platform generates 35% more conversions and 54% lower cost per acquisition when compared to a display-only strategy. So you think about CTV being part of your marketing mix, it really is a performance driver. We see conversion volume, we see lower CPAs, not just that awareness or impression-based, sort of goal or mindset that you may have right now when it comes to CTV and television advertising in general. And one thing we really want to be clear about in this, and again, as someone who runs a lot of these campaigns myself, I'm a big advocate for this. We don't advocate for abandoning your paid search or paid social strategy altogether. There are a lot of benefits, as we'll talk about, in terms of the halo effect of CTV having a positive impact on those channels. But we do not advocate for eliminating paid search and paid social from your mix and moving everything to CTV. We more so advocate for a really healthy and balanced marketing mix in that sense. So these tools continue to be really great tools for demand capture. And in fact, as I mentioned, and as the sort of title of this presentation alludes to, we see benefits in those channels from running CTV alongside them. So in action, CTV improves search and social performance. So when we look at fully optimized CTV campaigns, those in themselves drive really strong performance in the sense of conversions, return on ad spend, verified visits in terms of traffic to your website, everything that comes along with the brand awareness and incrementality of running a CTV campaign is delivered through the Mountain platform by itself. But we think about how we analyze performance outside of the Mountain platform and leveraging all three of these channels and these pillars being, CTV, paid search, and paid social. The results are really, really clear and really outstanding. So to get to those numbers specifically, what we did was take a look at our own first-party data and identify customers who added performance TV to their ad mix and what performance looked like in terms of paid search and paid social within a few different time ranges post adding Mountain. If you look at paid search within 30 days of adding Mountain, we see a little bit of a bump in conversion rates there, 1.64%. But in 90 days following the addition of Mountain CTV to their marketing mix, conversion rates in paid search increased on average by 22%. that is a significant amount of volume. And when you think about, as an advertiser yourself, what your paid search volume looks like right now in terms of conversions, 22% increase is very significant and can make or break your numbers on a monthly, quarterly, annual basis. So we see the impact of running CTV, not just in itself, but on a channel like paid search. And then, of course, we see numbers in the positive direction on the paid social side as well. So about a 4% increase in conversion rate following 30 days, 8.5% increase in 90 days after adding Mountain. So these two numbers combined, when you think about, search and social being the primary pillars of performance marketing, CTV stands right along with those and can enhance those programs just with the simple addition of CTV campaigns to your marketing mix. And of course, from a conversion standpoint, obviously the numbers are very telling, but when we look at site traffic and engagement on site, those numbers are also very positive. So when we look at, audiences who visit by way of paid social or paid search, on average, 49% of users, CTV drives a 49% longer average session duration versus paid social and a 19% longer session duration on average versus paid search. So we see the engagement we're allowing to your website to do its job. I think oftentimes with these sort of, video channels or channels that you traditionally think of as more brand awareness or even traffic driving, when you look at your analytics, you see very low engagement rates, you see low time on site, high bounce rates, pages per session, whatever metric you're sort of utilizing to define engagement on your website. In this case, CTV is exceeding what you would expect to see through paid social and paid search campaigns. And of course, we're navigating uncertain times. I mentioned at the start of this presentation, the economic uncertainty. I understand what that means for advertisers and businesses and how it can feel a little bit daunting potentially to add a larger channel in CTV to your marketing mix, or, as we think about it as a third pillar, that can require significant budget in your mind and time and everything like that. I promise you it's worth it, and it's not as difficult as you think it is. As a digital advertiser already running paid search and paid social campaigns, you have all of the tools you need. But we also see the performance enhancements within those paid search and social channels. So think about CTV as not only a net new channel and driving performance on its own, but continuing to enhance your existing marketing mix at a time where it may be difficult to extract incremental volume and incremental value from those channels. And as I mentioned, apply your performance skills. You've run paid search campaigns, you've run paid social campaigns. Even if you haven't, I promise you can run a CTV campaign. When I started working in digital marketing, CTV was a black box at best. It was typically a managed service. Minimums were very high. At best, once a week, we would get an impressions report, or we'd have to implement click trackers and impression trackers. And it was a nightmare to set up. It was difficult to measure and difficult to understand the outcomes. Much in the way that a lot of linear TV is purchased. You buy it, you sort of hope that it's working, and if overall business performance goes up, then you assume that it's doing its job, and you kind of keep going. As digital marketers, we like to be more analytical than that and a little bit more granular. So we think about utilizing the same structure from your paid search campaigns, how you're breaking out, different keywords by brand and non-brand or specific categories within your organization. Think about taking that mindset and structure, bringing it to the CTV platform and the CTV world. Thinking about how you segment your prospecting audiences, how you may want to retarget users who visit your site or specific pages on your site. All of that is available to you within the Mountain platform, as we would expect a platform to provide as digital marketers. So that's all very exciting. And as I mentioned, setup is a breeze. It's really divided into three main steps, all of which you'll be familiar with, especially, as I mentioned, if you've run campaigns on the social side before. Really starting with identifying those key details. What is your primary goal? If you have a specific target that you'd like to set in terms of CPA or return on ad spend, you can enter that at the start. Of course, enter in your budget, your flight dates, and that section is set. You're good to go. Then you move on to the next step, which is selecting your audience. This is where the Mountain platform, is really unique, and CTV really separates itself from linear in the sense that we're targeting on a user basis. So we're looking at specific audience segments in our partnership with Oracle, or as I mentioned, retargeting audiences. If you want to use users who have visited your site, you can build those audiences within the platform. And now you're targeting a user regardless of what content they're consuming. So, I myself, some days I might be watching one channel or, one piece of content or program, and the other I'm more interested in comedy. One day I might be interested in drama. I might not necessarily fit the mold of someone who watches Pretty Little Liars, for example. But I watched it. So when I'm watching that type of content, traditionally, I'm not available to, I don't fit that kind of core demographic. Linear TV is purchased much, more in that way. CTV, we're buying on an individual audience and user basis. So I'm a digital marketer. If I'm targeting digital marketers within my platform in the Mountain platform, I'm able to reach those users on the TV screen, regardless of what sort of content they're consuming, because they're part of my target audience. And I can feel really confident in the results I'm driving, in the impressions that I'm serving, that I'm reaching the appropriate users and not wasting spend. So that's step 2, select your audience, be creative with it, cast a wide net, gather learnings, and then optimize over time. And then step 3, of course, when it comes to CTV, a really important piece of this is creative and assigning your creative. The best part about this is you can really easily implement creative. Again, I think 5-10 years ago, video creative was seen as expensive to obtain. It was difficult. It required a lengthy creative process, a lot of ideation. Nowadays, it's much easier to produce video content with organizations such as QuickFrame by Mountain. They're a great organization to work with you to produce a massive amount of video content that you can test and learn with, not just within CTV, but across all of your paid channels. But you can also reuse a lot of the social assets you may be running. I'm sure, by this time, a lot of you are running video on social. Very easily can that be ported over into CTV and the Mountain platform and set up within your campaigns. And before you know it, you are running a campaign to your target audience on TV screens, wherever you want, however wide or far that looks like for you. So it's just really simple. It's taking that difficult CTV buying process that I described a few years ago, making it really self-serve, making it easy to understand, really step by step. And like I said, you'll be set up in a breeze. So as we think about today's key takeaways, as we talked about, number 1, connected TV continues to grow in popularity. It's not going anywhere. There's plenty of content. There's plenty of streaming services. More and more are adding ad-supported tiers. So take advantage and capture that shift in your audience and the agility your audience shows today by consuming different types of content and different platforms. Number 2, CTV has not only transformed the TV screen into a performance channel, as we've talked about, but it's also a really powerful demand generation machine. So we kind of went in depth on this one. But performance TV in itself, or connected TV, we like to think of as performance TV because it really is that third performance pillar in your marketing mix. Number 3, advertisers who add CTV to their ad mix see benefits across the board, including significant impacts in a positive sense on paid search and paid social performance. We reviewed those conversion rate increases, 22% lift in conversion rate after 90 days on paid search, 8.5% lift on paid social after 90 days. Those are significant impacts from adding a new channel potentially to your mix that you can experience on existing channels. And then number 4, CTV is as easy to set up as paid search and social. You already have the skills and the knowledge to apply everything you know about digital marketing into the CTV mix and the CTV channel and really make it, drive strong performance for you and be something alongside paid search and paid social, if not exceed it as it has at times for our own campaigns. So those are primarily the key takeaways. At this time, I'd love to invite Ruth back in and we'll open it up for Q&A.
Perfect. So nice to be back, Eric. And I'm going to ask you some questions, but one of the stats that really grabbed my attention then was that you said that you can't reach 70% of viewers are not accessible through linear TV. That is an amazing stat, and it really spoke to me because I think I might be one of those viewers. So let's now find out what the audience are asking you. So our first question was that let's take this one. I've seen headlines that streaming channels are producing less content. How is that going to affect connected TV as a performance channel?
Yeah, so it's a great question and a good thought, because I think we live in that age of there's so much content out there. And I think because of that, and as I mentioned, more and more streaming services are adding ad-supported tiers. I don't think there are any concerns about the amount of inventory available for CTV. If anything, I think we're getting more and more users. As I mentioned, that gap between streaming and linear will continue to grow in favor of streaming. And because of that, our user base on the CTV side, in terms of reachable audience, will continue to eat into that percentage you mentioned of 70% not being reachable on linear. I think that percentage will continue to increase in the near future. So I don't have any concerns about the access you have as an advertiser within CTV. There's plenty of content and plenty of placements from an advertising perspective.
Okay, great. So no need to panic. There's still plenty of TV left for all of us. Good news. Okay. The next question from Kylie was, how are CTV conversions tracked and attributed?
Yeah, great question. So much the same as any other digital advertising platform that you're utilizing. We have a mountain pixel that you will set up on your website, and then we do the rest. Our technology is set up to measure and track those conversions from a user viewing the television ad, potentially being served with an ad via the mountain multi-touch, kind of a feature where we have companion display banners that serve once a user has viewed or been served a ad on their TV screen. We'll also retarget them with companion banners that you can set and upload within the platform via display inventory, and ultimately track that user through to your website and whatever desired action, whether that's a purchase or a form sign up, you want them to take, we can track and measure through the Mountain platform.
Okay, and one of the things you've said quite a lot through this presentation was how CTV drives more engagement than other channels, but the audience are really keen to know, why do you think that's the case?
Yeah, it's another great question. I think, when we think of video content and our consuming habits these days, we become very numb to a lot of the various ad placements that we see throughout our typical browsing day, whether that be across paid social channels or just within our desktop. We sort of become, averse to the ads that we see, and they're just sort of part of our world now. Yeah. With CTV, it's on the biggest screen in your house. And when you think about your engagement when you're watching that type of content and programming, I think it just it carries a little bit more weight than it does if you're browsing online or scrolling through any of your social apps. It just provides a little bit more of an impact on what you're doing in your viewing behavior. There's also just inherently, if you're watching specific programming, you may only see 2 or 3 ads per commercial break, and those can be a little bit more impactful when they aren't surrounded by 10 or 15 other ads and other pieces of content. It's the only thing on your screen and it's unskippable. So it just drives home, I think, a little bit more with users. On top of that, I will also say the ability, again, to target specific audiences that are relevant to your business. You can see the results and feel confident that you're reaching people who are interested in your product and service and are really part of your core target audience. When they're engaging at a higher rate, I think it just shows that you're reaching the right users and the relevant users.
That all makes sense, Eric, although I guess it does depend how big your TV screen is, whether it is the biggest screen in your house.
That is fair. That is fair.
It's a fair point. So thinking actually of that and thinking about digital marketing channels, how do you incorporate CTV well with your paid social and paid search strategy?
Yeah, so what we typically do is, I take learnings from all 3 and pass them across to the other channels. So CTV has been a channel that we, have benefited a lot from our learnings within paid search, where we may identify, certain headlines or description lines that engage really well and drive strong click-through rates on the paid search side. And we think about how we might be able to integrate that within the creative that we're running on the CTV side, whether there's a voiceover we can utilize, or sort of just general ideation or imagery that works well on the paid social side that we can bring to CTV. I also think it's worth keeping a consistent brand voice across all three channels. So think about how you can tie in, as I mentioned, the mountain multi-touch companion banners. Make sure that that imagery or animation or video contains similar imagery, or is closely referencing the video that user was served on their CTV or on their TV screen via CTV. And just think about how all three channels work together. But what I really like to do is use the audience learnings from each of those and share them across channels. So there are audiences we have used and targeted within our connected TV campaigns that we found engage really well and convert at a really high rate. And we think about how we might be able to integrate those into existing paid social campaigns or launch new campaigns targeting a segment of our audience that we maybe haven't reached before via paid social. So just sharing those learnings, being agile, thinking creatively, and just being open to test and learn. That's the biggest thing for me.
Okay, so going back from the world of digital, from paid search and social, back to the big TV screen, someone has asked, should they really be advertising on CTV, or would they be better off placing their ad in a high-profile event like the Super Bowl? And I'm excited to know who's asked this, because it must mean they can afford the Super Bowl advertisement.
Yeah, and you touched on it a little bit. It's a kind of a twofold question. One, of course, some of those really high profile events are very expensive. They have very limited inventory. But in reality, you're reaching a lot of people who aren't relevant to your business. There are a lot of users watching those types of programs and content that aren't going to end up being customers or aren't prospects for your business. And in reality, you're better off taking those ad dollars and applying them to campaigns where you can specifically reach those users are part of your target market and are going to be interested in potentially signing up or purchasing from your organization. So, it's fair to say that those are purely expensive, and that's the reason to think about running CTV. But really, it's on the audience side. You're just much more efficient in your spend and your impressions that you're serving within CTV because of the targeted audience.
Okay, great. And from the question from the person who's rich enough to buy a Super Bowl ad, we want to go to the other end of the scale. So some of us don't have easy access to video creative. It's hard for us. We don't have it easily available to us. Have you got any recommendations? Is there any way to use CTV if you don't have access to video creative?
Yes, and that's where I talk a little bit about, from earlier in the presentation, utilizing anything you may already be running on the social side. But if you don't, there are platforms like QuickFrame by Mountain to really provide video creative for you at costs that are within your budget. What QuickFrame does is will really work with you to develop a number of creative assets that you can test consistently over time. They can produce dozens and dozens of different variations of different ideas and things like that for you to utilize, as I said, not only within connected TV via the Mountain platform, but you can take those video assets and run them across your other paid social channels and where else you'd like to that supports video inventory. So there are ways. It's, as I mentioned, not nearly as expensive as it used to be. If you think about how video content is created these days and how it's consumed by a large portion of the population, we don't necessarily expect the, hundreds of thousands of dollars production budgets. Those aren't always the most impactful, ads and videos that we interact with on a daily basis. Oftentimes it's, someone whipping out their smartphone and shooting something funny and posting it, and we engage with it. So think about how you can be creative with your brand and within your budget to produce video content that you can run not only on CTV, but across all of your digital marketing channels. It's easier than you think.
Okay, guys, so don't let fear hold you back. You can have a place on CTV. So just to dive into the details a little bit, Eric, someone's asked, how do you measure the incremental conversion lift when you're working with CTV?
Yeah, so what we take a look at, and Mountain offers incrementality measurement within the platform from a prospecting standpoint. What we really do is take a control group of your prospecting audience, however you define that within the platform, and pull them out of potentially seeing a mountain ad, and really segment those two control groups into the control and the exposed group. And then we measure the performance of those two against each other. And more often than not, we see significant incremental gains against those users who, within the same audience, were served a mountain CTV ad versus those who were not. So it's a very simple process, one that you're familiar with as a digital marketer if you've worked with other platforms that offer incrementality. The best part about Mountain is that that's included within the platform at no additional cost. So something that you'll get access to within the reporting, and is just a really good, as a digital advertiser, you can feel really confident in the results you're driving when you see those incremental gains in conversions, verified visits, and site traffic right within the platform. You know what you're doing is working.
Okay, great. And we're nearly out of time here, Eric, but someone asked, do you believe CTV is a good channel for luxury brands, considering their target audiences, behavior, and types of content consumption?
Yeah, absolutely. I would say off the top of my mind, there isn't an industry or vertical I can think of that wouldn't be well suited for CTV. And again, the reason for that being not only the type of inventory and the placement, we've talked a lot about being the TV is the biggest screen in the house for most people. But in reality, you're also able to reach your audience directly. So the same way that you're potentially serving ads on paid social by identifying specific audience segments, targeting visitors who have visited your site, all of that is available to you within the Mount CTV platform. So you're reaching your user and your target market on potentially a brand new medium and a brand new channel for you as a business. There's a ton of value in that. And we've seen that in the numbers and the impact it has on paid search and social. But there's value in that for your business from a brand awareness standpoint, from a traffic standpoint, from a conversion standpoint. So I absolutely recommend it for luxury brands. Think about, again, being creative with the video, how you can upload relevant companion banners via Mountain Multi-Touch that are associated with the video content you're running. But in reality, every vertical and industry is well suited for CTV.
Okay, great news. Now, Eric, we're just about out of time here. I can see people are still furiously asking a few questions. So if you've got anything else that Eric hasn't had time to answer today, do please ask the great people at Mountain. We'll be sending out all the information with the details of the webinar so you can watch again afterwards. So if Eric didn't manage to get to anything, don't worry, you can still find out. But Eric, you went through lots of data, lots of facts, gave us an insight into how this works. But is there any one last piece of advice you'd give marketers delving into this space?
Yeah, I think we've talked a little bit about the economic uncertainty and the unknown of early 2023 from an advertising perspective. And one thing that I think about a lot at this time, if you're thinking about adding CTV to your marketing mix, or if it's already part of your mix and you're evaluating a lot of your existing channels, think about, throughout history during these sort of economic downturns, the organizations and brands that come out the other side really well positioned are those that continue to be innovative. And those that remain stagnant tend to fall behind a little bit, and they're trying to play catch up when we come out the other end of these sort of economic times. So think about how you can be creative with a channel like CTV. As we've mentioned, it's not nearly as expensive as you think it is. Video creation isn't nearly as difficult or expensive as it used to be. So potentially adding a new channel that can benefit your business, not only directly from the results of that channel, but can benefit your existing channels as well, can just really set up your organization and business and you personally to drive strong performance. And, when we do come out the other end of the uncertainty and everything sort of stabilizes, you'll be miles ahead of your competitors.
Great. Well, I think that is advice we'd all like to take, because let's face it, we all want to be ahead of our competitors, as well as having a really large screen TV that we can watch the Super Bowl on. Eric, thank you so much for taking this time to present to us and also answer all those quick fire questions. Hopefully we got most of them in. If not, we'll have to do a part 2. Eric, thank you so much. It was great having you here.
Thank you so much, Ruth, and everyone have a great